All right, welcome in here, WagerTalk.com. It is time to grab that early edge. College football week 11. I am Joe Raineri. He is the legendary Mr. Dave Cokin. And what a week 10 it was. A lot to be excited about at this point in the college football season. Number one goes down, right? Notre Dame. A lot of great storylines. I think some even better storylines now coming out of a crazy week 10 into week 11. We're going to tackle some of that for you. Also, take a look at the market report, let you know who some of these early movers are. Dave will go through the list. But I want to start here, guys. Talk about a great weekend, not only for Notre Dame, but the guy sitting to my left, I'm not even sure which side he's on, depending on which way the camera is facing. Somewhere over there. I can tell you this, though, guys. Again, another monster weekend for Mr. Cokin here in college football. 9-0 college football alone on his 5% plays since October of last year, guys. 3-0 on Saturday this week, including another 5-0. We keep harping on the 5-0, guys, are the 5% plays. It's ridiculous the kinds of profits that he has been making his clients, guys, over the years, especially over just look at the last 12 or 13 months here at Wager Talk. It has been ridiculous. And Dave, what's the secret, Dave? Everyone wants to know, what's the secret here? Maybe because you don't play 25 games in a weekend? Could that be?
Oh, I don't know. It's just the plays that come up the strongest for me on my numbers and maybe some information on in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a high volume guy because I bet everything I give out, and I'm not knocking anybody who gives out 15 games a week, but I could never put that much of my bankroll at risk. I just couldn't do it. I'd drive myself nuts. So I just stay with what's always worked for me, and that's about it. But the 5% plays, I think it's 78.3%.
Crazy.
What is now 14 months.
Mm-hmm.
The college football 9 straight going back to last season. College and NFL so far this season 6-0. So the big plays have been getting there, but a lot of the small stuff's getting there as well. Golf, I don't play anything big in golf, and I think I'm like 25-9 on my matchups in golf. And this is Masters week, so I'll have a package up on Wednesday with I'm not sure how many matchups I'll have, maybe 3, maybe 5, somewhere in that range. But it's been good. I've got no complaints. I'm happy with the way things are going. I want to win every bet I make.
Yes.
That's not going to happen. That's obviously not going to happen. But it almost happened this weekend, so I'm pretty pleased with the way things are right now.
Numbers are phenomenal, guys, and I'll invite you to head over to WagerTalk.com, visit Dave's page. Uh-oh, what'd you win now?
No, I want to mention something before we get to this week's stuff.
Go ahead.
If I see one more of these, if Trevor Lawrence had been playing, Clemson would have won the game. Yeah, but he wasn't, okay? I mean, if Jim Rice hadn't broken his hand in 1975, the Red Sox probably would have won the World Series. If some guy who never caught another pass in the NFL hadn't caught one off his helmet in 2012, the Patriots would have won another Super Bowl. Ifs don't matter. If the queen had balls, she'd be the king. Okay? Stop with the if Trevor Lawrence, because he didn't.
Yep.
And Notre Dame won the game. That might have been the best college football game I've seen in a couple of years.
Phenomenal.
And might be the best game I'll see all season. I didn't have a penny on it. I didn't have a play in the game. But that was epic. That was as exciting as it gets. I don't care if you're a college football fan or not.
Yep.
That was amazing.
Let me ask you, you brought that up there, Dave. Let me ask you, because it's been brought up, and it's an interesting, with Notre Dame making the concession this year to not remain independent and join the ACC. How much fun would that be if Notre Dame, Clemson, they could still, schedule the USCs, the Michigans in their out-of-conference schedule. Wouldn't it be great to have Notre Dame in the ACC?
Absolutely.
Right?
I'd much rather see Notre Dame competing for a conference title
Absolutely.
like they do in basketball.
Yep.
And nobody has any problems with that. I'd like to see it in football. And I know there's some tradition involved, but does Notre Dame have to play Army?
Right.
Exactly. It's kind of a mismatch.
Yep.
Or Navy. It's Navy they play. And by the way, they get to keep some of the rivalries. Notre Dame, Boston College.
Yeah,
still in the same they'll be in the
absolutely.
same conference.
Yep.
That's a great. I know it's a little brother versus big brother rivalry, but it's still about the best Catholic school rivalry there is out there.
Yep.
Boston College that's this weekend, by the way.
That's correct.
That's the biggest. That is the biggest game on the Boston College schedule every year.
That's correct. Yep.
And for Notre Dame, it's a spot where they got to be careful because little brother wants to knock them off. And that could be a real interesting spot. We're going to talk about some scheduling spots. That's one of them this week.
Yep.
Notre Dame better be careful about a letdown because I'll guarantee you Boston College is coming in ready to play that game this weekend.
Yep. And the truth is, listen, the way the schedule is working out this year and this crazy COVID 2020, there could possibly be another meeting between those two teams anyway.
Right.
So keep the faith, Clemson fan base. You'll be able to get your shot, something tells me. But kudos to Notre Dame.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Notre Dame. 5.5 was the closing number, right around 5.5, somewhere along those lines. And that could very well be the college football game of the year, and I'm not over-exaggerating with that, right? I mean, if you had a chance to be in that,
they're gonna have to go some to produce a more thrilling matchup than we saw on Saturday. I mean,
absolutely,
there was no way. And the cool thing is, you had I don't know whether to call him the president-elect or the current leader. I don't know, but Biden was making a speech, and this is the beauty of today, as opposed to 30 years ago.
Yep.
If this happens 30 years ago and you want to watch the football game, you're screwed. Okay, because the network's cut into the speech.
Yep.
Now, if you wanted to watch the game, you just go over to USA Network.
That's right.
And you won't miss a play, which is what I did because I wanted to watch the game. I never missed a play. It was fantastic. So we will never again have a rerun of the Heidi incident from the late 1960s, which I was around for, and I was watching the game.
Were you really when they cut to it?
I don't know what I was on the East Coast. I was in Rhode Island. I was 15 years old.
Wow.
And Joe Namath was my favorite player.
Of course.
I think every 15-year-old kid, every 15-year-old straight male, Joe Namath was the
That's
guy.
who you wanted. Yep.
So the Jets are playing the Raiders, and they cut away for Heidi at 7:00 Eastern time. Never saw the end of the game. I think the West Coast people might have seen it, but I never saw it. And didn't find out till afterwards what had happened. It was like, you did what? So that's one of the differences between 50 years ago and now.
Yes.
Heidi game will never be repeated. Thank goodness.
Never be repeated. And thank goodness for that. We always complain about having maybe too many choices. I got 800 channels. Well, 800 channels allows you to finish watching the game of the year thus far. All you had to do was hit the remote. So, not all technology is terrible. And there were
I love it. It's the best thing. Oh,
right?
Listen,
I mean,
I understand we've given up some level of privacy and stuff like that, but
right.
Let me tell you, my life's a lot better with technology than it was without it. Okay.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you,
I'll give you a perfect example. By the way, I wouldn't be able to drive if it was 20 years ago. I wouldn't be able to drive because I wouldn't. I have to go like that to see if there's anybody on my left. I literally have to stick my head out the window. Now you got the sensors on the side view mirrors. I can drive just as well as anybody. So thank you, technology.
Just as good as it is. We all bitch and moan about technology, but the reality is, hey, we're glad we have it, especially when it comes to having 5, 6, 7 games on at the same time on a Saturday for college football, and it was a loaded slate.
Except for one thing.
Oh, no.
And I tweeted about this. When you can't find the remote because the cat's laying on it.
That's a problem. I'm not going to lie. Yes, the couch cushion sucks it away somewhere.
Cats are stupid, okay? They don't understand technology at all.
Yeah, and they like just to mess with you.
Let's talk some football.
They just like to mess with you anyway. Cats are only interested in fucking with you the whole time. That's all they ever do. Let's talk about some of the misleading scores here, some head scratchers with some winners here this past weekend. And we'll start with, how about Mike Leach here, we know he's got issues. Let's face it, got a lot of guys walking out the door, a lot of kids quitting the program. He opened the door and said, you don't want to be here, head out. And a lot of guys walked out, and they took on the doormat of the SEC there, Vanderbilt, over the weekend. But Careful with the score. Yes, Mississippi won, but can we be realistic here? Vanderbilt outplayed them in just about every facet of that game.
Yeah, if Vanderbilt doesn't turn the ball over, they win the game.
Yep.
-5 turnovers. They outgained Mississippi State by almost 300 yards in that game, which speaks volumes about how bad Mississippi State is right now.
Yep.
You get outgained by, I think it was 274 yards. By that team? By Kansas East? Or Kansas South, whatever you want to call them. That's not good.
Yep.
They're going to have trouble winning another game, I think.
It's going to be tough.
I'll give you another one. Northwestern, Nebraska. It's a good win for Northwestern, but Nebraska just was so bad in the red zone in that game.
Yep.
They won the yards. They should have won the football game. They were completely inefficient on offense in the red zone and got like 6 points out of 6 red zone opportunities, which was generally going to lose you the football game. So that's something to bear in mind this weekend. When you look at Penn State going in there, limping in there badly at 0-3.
Right.
And Nebraska actually having played better than their record would indicate in their 2 games. They weren't all that terrible against Ohio State, and they really should have beaten Northwestern. So I'm not saying Nebraska is going to be on my card, but it's one I'm considering. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting. We'll take a look at those numbers, guys, and give those to you in just a minute there. How surprised were you with Georgia once Stetson Bennett went down? Was it pretty much over at that particular point?
I think the problem was more the Georgia defense.
Yeah,
they had some injury issues.
Yep.
But Georgia scored points in the game, and I know their offense wasn't as good as they would have liked it with the quarterback situation. But the Georgia defense got torched.
Yep.
By Florida in that game, and that's why you got to look at these injuries going in, because I think I mentioned it was either on this show or WagerTalk today that be careful about the Georgia injuries, because they're hurting in the backfield, and that might be bad news against this Trask is having a great year for Florida. I don't know how good he'll be in the NFL. I'm not as high on him as an NFL quarterback as some others are, but he's a great college quarterback, and he just tore him apart.
Yep. And already the UF can play with Alabama conversations going on down here in South Florida, Dave. So it's already starting to go with UF.
I don't know if they can.
Yeah.
Because their defense is just not very good.
No, not what we've come to know. It'll be interesting to see how that works. Another team, though, let's look at this USC team, who was in many aspects outplayed by Arizona State. Fair enough to say, in your opinion, but an onside kick, a couple of balls, a couple of calls that go against Arizona State. And next thing you know, USC's a winner. But were you that impressed with what you saw?
Yes and no. I think there were some good things for USC in this game. And I've gotten used to USC starting off the season badly. Whether you could, I don't know what you want to blame that on, maybe overhype or maybe the coaching. But they do tend to get better as the season goes along. Mm-hmm. So for them to escape last week with that win was pretty big for them. Arizona State's not a bad football team, and they got pretty unlucky in this one. And you got to do a better. Simple as this, you got to do a better job on onside kicks.
Special teams. We saw that in a number of situations here this weekend. First and foremost, timeout. No, I'm only kidding. That's Virginia Tech. Let's talk about a couple of stat dogs here. Let's talk about a few of these dogs from over the weekend. And we'll go with Liberty, a team that pretty much some people thought they'd cover. The number might have been too big, but there was no question in their mind that Virginia Tech was easily going to show Liberty, who had a cakewalk up to this point. We're going to show you exactly. Beating Syracuse and beating Virginia Tech is two different things. Well, surprise.
That's one of the things we talked about last week when we talked about the scheduling potholes. We're going to get to the scheduling potholes for this week in a minute. But this was not a good scheduling spot. For Virginia Tech. They were in between. They don't care about Liberty. And it's not like Virginia Tech needs the game for the playoffs or something, because they're not going to be a playoff team.
Right.
So it was a flat spot for them. And for Liberty, it's the biggest game they've ever played.
Yep.
So despite the fact that Virginia Tech clearly has better talent at basically every position, almost every position, this was one of those tricky spots where team comes in flat, they might struggle, and they did. And Liberty wanted it more.
Yeah.
And there could be a couple of games this week that fall into that category as well. It's why you have to it's not just about power ratings. That's where I start each week with making a number, but then I've got to look at the schedule and see where situationally there might be an advantage for one team over another.
Yep.
So let's talk about a couple of those now. One of them is Cincinnati, which looks great, is at Central Florida next week.
Yeah.
That's the game. That is the game for Cincinnati on the remainder of their schedule. So they could look at I'm not saying they're going to get beaten by East Carolina, but this might not be their sharpest performance.
Correct.
Makes it tough to lay almost 30 points. And you could look at Central Florida and say the same thing, because UCF still, I'm sure in their minds, thinks they have a chance to be the group of 5 entry. So that's going to be their big game.
Yep.
Another one, a little below this level in terms of the marquee, but the game in the Sun Belt is next week. It's Appalachian State at Coastal Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be careful about those two teams this week.
Yep.
Because, number one, it's not as big games on deck. Number two, a lot of times, because they're facing weaker opponents this week, the game planning at practice is actually factoring in the next opponent more than this week's opponent.
That's
And
correct.
it sometimes leads to a team not being real sharp. They'll do enough to win the game, but that sure isn't enough to win the spread. So those are games you have to be very careful of. And we mentioned Notre Dame, Boston College.
Yep.
I mean, clearly this is a potential letdown spot for Notre Dame. Boston College, mentioned them last week because they were in their flat spot, coming off the almost great upset against Clemson, with this Notre Dame game on deck, facing lowly Syracuse, and they barely got out of there with a win.
Mm-hmm.
Only won the game by 3 points. So these are things that you definitely should factor into your analysis each week, is taking a look at what just took place in terms of the opponent and what might be up next for that opponent. You can get some edges that way. And at the very least, it might keep you from a loser.
Correct. And which is maybe the whole point. Really, the whole point of all of this is to try and avoid those potholes in these situations.
Indiana.
Oh, yes.
They're not used to being in this kind of a situation.
No.
And I wonder about how sharp they're going to be this week.
Yep.
They're off this great win against Michigan, plus they already had the win over Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
They got Ohio State next week, which is going to be for that division title.
That's correct. Yep. And
I
when
wouldn't play Indiana this week.
No.
Okay, it's a tricky spot for Indiana.
Yep.
And they're
Michigan.
not used to being in this kind of a situation. So unlike a couple of the other teams you mentioned, I mean, this would not be an absolute shocker to me if Indiana goes out there and really struggles to win this weekend.
Yeah. And you have a lot of these teams like Indiana, like Cincinnati, for instance, Coastal Carolina, or Liberty. A lot of these teams that, they're good, but there's always but. There's always been a but. And right now, they're getting more love and more hype. And let's face it, 18 to 20-year-old kids, you know what? They hear the hype, Dave, don't they? Like, they hear the hype. And when you have these look-ahead spots.
It's not a business then. That's why I've always said that college has the one variable that the pros don't have as much. It can still show up. It can still show up in the pros, but not to the same extent. And that's emotion.
That's correct.
College football and college basketball, emotion is an intangible you have to factor in. That's why revenge in the pro sports doesn't mean a thing.
Nope.
Just, unless there's something that really stood out from the prior meeting, you just dismiss it. But in college basketball, in particular, not so much in college football because they only meet once a year. In college basketball, the team that lost the first meeting, I'm going to be taking a look at them in rematches, which is part of the reason that I like the back end of the college conference schedule in basketball way more than the front end, because I get to factor in the revenges, and that can be a nice plus in terms of awarding an extra, if you're doing a power ratings, awarding an extra point or two to the team with the revenge, particularly if they lost at home. They lost a close game at home, and they're now road dogs.
Yep.
With that same season revenge, that's worth a point or two.
Yep. And there's a upcoming, guys, keep an eye on some of these upcoming, some very interesting games. There's also, Dave, appears to be some spots where maybe the market is not necessarily sold on a team, and looking at the market, Maryland beats Penn State, but they're still a 4.5, 5 touchdown underdog going to Ohio State. Are you a believer in Maryland yet, or you're not, right? So you still don't believe in them?
I'm a non-believer in Penn State at this point. The quarterback has the mobility of me. And we warned about this I think it was on this show last week, that, Penn State's season is over.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why they could be. I think Nebraska might be live against them this week. I think Nebraska's got more to play for here than Penn State does. Penn State, if you're on Penn State right now, season's done. I mean, Franklin's going to have to find a way to inspire the team, which he clearly did not do coming out of the 2 losses to start the season. And they got blown out early by Maryland, which was improved but not real good.
No.
And good luck to Franklin. He's got a tough job with the team now 0-3. They could be going through the motions at this point.
How about that? How about I'm looking at the number here. It looks like SMU too, right? 7-1. They're a top 20 team, and they're an underdog against Tulsa.
Tulsa's good though.
Yeah,
Tulsa's good.
No doubt. Yep, no doubt. But another one of those not getting any respect.
SMU wasn't great. I had SMU on Saturday, and I won the game.
Right.
But I won it basically because Temple's so short-handed right now. They ran out of gas in the second half and got run over.
Right.
Which was kind of what I was expecting, but I didn't expect Temple to be ahead for most of the first half in that game. So I'm not so sure about SMU.
How about Arkansas coming back 3 touchdowns second half, completely unanswered, take over Tennessee, win the game, cover the game as a dog?
That's more on Tennessee.
Yeah, that's more on Tennessee. I was going to say, does that carry over into their game against Florida this week?
I'm not even looking at the Arkansas. I'm looking more at Tennessee.
Which
in the last 4 games, Tennessee has been outscored in the second half, 88-7.
Amazing.
That team's got some real problems.
Yep. They, too, got some interesting. I think they lost their quarterback, right? I think it was Grantano. He was out. So they too, hit with some injuries. But Tennessee is just, it always starts the same with them. Really hyped and then never lives up to it about 4 games into the season.
It was the opposite coming into this year, though. Completely the opposite.
Oh, they won that first game, right?
No, they played great football in the second half of last season.
Yes.
I mean, they were a team on the rise coming into this season with a lot of expectations, and unfortunately, it isn't working out at all. And there are some internal problems at Tennessee. We'll just leave it at that. But no, Tennessee has completely flipped the switch from last season. They were a really good football team at the end of last season.
Going to be interesting, too, guys, as we continue with the Pac-12. And I got to ask you, Dave, before we go to the market report and take a look at some of the movers and shakers here, is BYU for real in your eyes? Is this a playoff caliber team? Should we be talking about BYU?
No, not unless it's an 8-team playoff.
Okay.
Which I'd like to see, because then the BYUs and Cincinnati's of the world would at least have a chance.
Right.
Which I think they deserve. But if you're asking me whether BYU is one of the 4 best teams in the country, or Cincinnati's one of the 4 best teams in the country, no, they're just not.
You're not there
yet.
If
you're a fan of one of those teams, sorry, but that's just the way it is. BYU is a good team.
Yeah.
They're top. Them and Cincinnati are both top 15, but they're not top 4.
Interesting. Well, that's good. You expand that playoff. You're like you said, that give everyone a chance to either prove it true or prove it wrong.
I'd like to see 8.
I would too. Absolutely.
I think 8's enough. I don't need it to be like the NCAA tournament where, because you've got so many automatic conference bids, you get 68 teams.
Yep.
Because most of those teams have 0 chance. And you want the playoffs to be teams that actually belong there. But there's more than 4 teams that belong there.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Talk to me about West Virginia, Texas this past weekend. Talk about Stat Dog. What'd you see in that game over there?
West Virginia was the better team.
Yeah.
And should have won the football game, but I disagreed with the coach when he went for it on fourth down, early fourth quarter, down what were they down 6-7 at the time.
Yep.
Take the 3. You got plenty of time left. Your team's starting
7
to
minutes
dominate.
left. Yep.
They're starting to dominate at the line of scrimmage.
Hmm.
They actually were down. They were down. I'm forgetting the margin now, but had 2 field goals would have given them the lead.
Yes.
And instead, they got nothing out of 2 first and goals. They got nothing because they went for it on 4th and goal both times. They lost the game they should have won. But the way we keep score here in Las Vegas, they did win because getting 6.5 was enough.
That's it.
And so I won that bet.
Yep, that was good enough. A lot of people actually were scratching their head with that game, but Texas continues to roll. We'll see how that plays out for them moving forward. Couple of games on the card here. Let's take a look at the market here, Dave, because you know I'm going to be waiting for you to start with this Virginia Tech Miami game because
I'm not going to get to that for a while because I like to take them in order of the rotation.
Oh no, that's what I mean. I'm waiting. So go ahead. Let's start rolling down. Tell me what you're seeing here.
This way, people who are following with their schedules can just make little check marks as we go along. We'll start with tomorrow night, Akron and Ohio, and all the early money is on Ohio here. This number is going up like 5 points, and it's all money against Akron, which is an amazingly bad football team. Moving to the Wednesday stuff, not a lot happening on Wednesday. The one exception looks like Central Michigan, I think, is going to get the public side. They'll be the public side against Northern Illinois, and I don't think that the math guys will buy back Northern Illinois. So I think that line, if you like that game, the 7.5 I think is as good as you're probably going to get, and I suspect that line might go up. Colorado State, Boise State, I got nothing on the Thursday game. Friday, not much happening on the Friday game. So we move to Saturday, and we'll check where the money's showing. There's money showing for Memphis, which doesn't surprise me. Navy's made a lot of people money this year,
right?
Betting against them, and looks like the market will continue to do that in this game. Excuse me. Florida State NC State game looks like there might be some issues in that game because most shops have it off right now. A&M and Tennessee, likewise, the number dropped all the way to 8. This is on the Texas A&M side. They have some issues. So my recommendation on these games, if you don't care about the potential issues, you just go ahead and lay the favorite because it's not going to get any lower. Okay, I just don't anticipate that it can get any lower. And if some of these guys end up being able to play, and we don't know that right now,
right?
Then 8's really cheap. So I would say that's bottomed out. Where it's up, it's off the board in a lot of places. But if
I'm seeing that.
On the board where you are, well, you can maybe take a chance on that and hope you're right. Let's see as we go down the list here. Temple Central Florida is another one. Temple doesn't have any players left. They're just that game is off the board in spots. But now Central Florida's got some issues.
Yep.
This is just the way we have to deal with things in 2020, and it's why I'm putting out less early plays than I ever have, and just basically digesting as much information as I possibly can because that's what you got to do. That Indiana-Michigan State game, there has been some sharp buys on Michigan State, and I think that has to do with the situation we talked about as far as Indiana's scheduling with some handicappers looking at that. That's a handicapping play more than a math move. I think that's one where you've got some handicappers looking at this and saying this could be a tricky spot for Indiana, and they might be overvalued.
Yep.
Coming off a great win while Michigan State got the living crap knocked out of it over the weekend. Yep. Northwestern is getting play against Purdue. People are impressed with Northwestern right now. Again, I didn't think Northwestern was all that good against Nebraska, so I might not be as impressed with them as some. I think they're a good team, but I don't know that they're as good as people are making them out to be. Let's see what else we've got. A little movement on Arizona State, which I think has to do with the fact that California couldn't field a full football team last week.
Right.
And people aren't sure what they're going to have out there this week. So there's some money showing on the Sun Devils in that game. A lot of money showing on Nevada already. I think that has to do with the fact that New Mexico is basically the road team in every game they play this year.
Yeah.
Because they're now stationed in Las Vegas. They'll be using Sam Boyd Stadium as their home digs. I think Nevada, they've already played here.
Yeah.
Well, they played in Las Vegas. They played at the new stadium. I think people look at this and say there shouldn't be any. If anything, the home field is more Nevada than New Mexico. So I think you're seeing some movement on the Wolfpack there. There's a lot of Reno people that live here because they're in the hospitality industry, and business is just taking them here.
Yep.
And while it's not, we're not talking about thousands of fans in the stands, it's still there's some local support.
Yep.
Reno, we'll put it that way. Actually, a little money on Utah State showing because they fired the coach, Gary Anderson.
Exactly.
I was stupid enough to take Utah State on Thursday, and that will be, or Friday, whatever day it was. That'll be the single dumbest play I've made all season. And they actually led the game 9-0.
Yep.
So it was that was not sharp handicapping on my part. Oregon getting the money at Washington State.
Yeah.
I think for people who watched Washington State on Saturday night, they had to be impressed.
They ran the ball, I think, right?
State.
They actually ran the ball.
I didn't hear what you said.
No, they ran the ball. Washington State actually has running backs that run the ball, not just some sort of, out in the flat and using them for the passing game. They actually can rush the ball now in Washington State. Go figure.
Yeah, I think they actually ran the ball more than they passed the ball in the game.
Yeah, go figure.
So they're still going to throw it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll probably have to throw it a lot more in this game.
Yep.
Because they're not going to run on Oregon. But I think Rolovich is an upgrade from Leach. I think I've said that before. And so far that looks good. Washington's getting some money against Oregon State. Quite frankly, the Beavers, who had some hype coming in, did not play well in that game against Washington State. And I think they might have been a little bit overrated coming into the season. San Diego State is getting money despite the fact that they looked absolutely awful last week against San Jose State. They got completely outplayed in the game, and that was with a backup quarterback, San Jose State, because the starter got knocked out of the game very early. So I'm not so sure about Brady Hoke in his second tour of duty at San Diego State. They were not good in that game, and he's already starting to get called Brady Joke by some Aztec fans who are not real pleased about what's going on. Colorado Stanford's off the board in a lot of places because we don't know who's going to be out there for Stanford at this point. I didn't even know this. This apparently just
happened. Yep.
Auburn, Mississippi State.
Yep.
Apparently
just happened.
Been, canceled.
Yep. Just happened.
Or moved. Okay. I did not know that.
Yep.
Well, there goes one of my plays for this week. This is why I'm not posting stuff early.
Exactly.
Because I was going to be on Auburn in this game.
Yep.
This was, to me, a really good matchup for Auburn. And,
Yeah, that happens.
There's other games on the schedule. Penn State-Nebraska game is holding at 3. I would not be shocked if that game drops below 3. I think you're going to see some Nebraska money in that game. It won't be public, I don't think. But I think you'll see some sharp money coming in on them. That Tulsa line's actually going up a little bit.
It's crazy, right?
Well, I think that you can call that sharper money.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think the public's going to bet Tulsa against SMU. Let's see. Any others on here? Mississippi's going up considerably against South Carolina.
Yep.
Bill Muschamp looks like dead man walking or dead coach walking at this point. I don't think he's going to be back, especially after that disaster on Saturday. I mean, that was really bad. And I got to tell you, these coaches who do this, if you're down 100 points, don't kick a field goal.
Yes.
Hey, all it does is it pisses off your own fan base.
That's correct.
They'd rather you get shut out and try than kick a field goal to avoid getting shut out. I don't know what that means. What, is the team going to feel better about themselves?
Yeah.
Because they get 48-3 instead of 48-0? That is, it's sometimes these coaches have a mindset that I absolutely cannot figure out. Georgia, Missouri, we're seeing off the board in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Issues there as well. Southern Miss, Western Kentucky. Another game. Southern Miss has had more problems this year than maybe anybody in the country.
Terrible.
And Utah, UCLA. I saw somebody tweet this that, if you like UCLA, run to the window now. I don't think they're wrong, but I don't know who's playing for Utah. They moved the game from Friday to Saturday.
Right. Yep.
And I don't know who's playing. And if Utah's got their core guys out there, then they shouldn't be just a 3-point favorite against the Bruins.
I agree.
Who, as usual, are overhyped. And I think that's it.
Yeah. No, and kudos should be mentioned. Kudos to what Mel Tucker there, Colorado took advantage of. I think 4 turnovers in the first half for UCLA. So Chip Kelly's team once again just couldn't figure out what uniform they were playing for. Put the ball on the ground a couple of times, and they took advantage of it. To Colorado's credit.
The quarterback still makes too many mistakes.
Yeah, he does.
I know he's got experience, and I root for him to do well because he's a Las Vegas kid, but he just makes a lot of mistakes. And their linebackers stink.
Defense was
just bad. And, I'm not saying – I don't know what Utah's going to have out there this weekend, so I can't say that Utah can take advantage of that. But teams with good offenses and smart quarterbacks are going to just tear that team apart.
Discipline.
Because Colorado's good. Guy was playing defensive back, and now he's a quarterback. And on my original Colorado depth chart that I made in the spring, I had him 3rd string.
Wow.
So, and he obliterated them.
Yep.
Their linebackers can't play.
Yep.
And Chip Kelly's an offensive coach. Okay, his defense has never been great. So bear that in mind with the Bruins. I think USC, 2 LA schools always get a lot of hype. I think USC is somewhat legitimate. They've got a really talented roster. UCLA, not so much. If UCLA wins half their games, I think they're doing okay.
When is the last time, 2 quick ones here, guys, I'll just get your thoughts quickly. LSU, almost a 4-touchdown under. I mean, it's just mind-blowing.
Here's I forget which book it might have been Circa. Was it Golden Nugget? I don't remember. Whoever put up the games of the year.
Okay.
Which is a great concept.
Oh,
They put the lines up basically in spring for the fall on some really big games.
Love it.
I think Alabama was 1 against LSU. So things have changed.
Let's see. A little bit here, guys, a little bit. And I got to get your thoughts. It's always been my experience, and the whispers down here in South Florida, is everyone just watched Miami. Great game, comeback was wonderful. Virginia Tech loses the Liberty. Miami's playing Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech opens up as a 2.5-point favorite. That doesn't happen by accident, does it, Dave?
No, the teams are really even, though.
Right.
Virginia Tech's, I've said this before, I think Virginia Tech's really talented. But the defense just hasn't come around.
Right.
And, they've had a lot of injury issues, and they had COVID issues early on. Some teams have been able to put that in the rearview mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Virginia Tech has. They've had a couple of games this year that have been really bad.
Mm.
I mean, the game with Wake Forest.
Oh.
They just weren't prepared
defensively
in that game. And I don't care how big the flat spot was for them and how big the game was for Liberty. You can't allow that many points against Liberty.
No.
I think Miami's a little better. And King was phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
Oh, he was great.
Unbelievable.
And if Virginia Tech can't defend, they're going to have trouble. I think Miami's a little better team than Virginia Tech at this point. That's a game that's it's on the consideration list.
Yeah, I don't blame you. They're screaming and yelling here in South Florida. No respect, no respect. So go ahead and play that card, Miami.
But they don't really rate that much respect.
Right. Yeah, well,
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you Miami's a great team either.
And it's in Blacksburg too.
So going to get better. I think they're going to get better under Diaz because I think he's going to. The team that's in trouble is Florida State.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the team in trouble. Miami's going to be okay.
Yep.
Florida State, I don't know what they're going to do because their recruiting has slipped badly, and they might be about to become one of those teams where their fans have to rely on great memories. It's kind of like UNLV basketball.
There you go. Great analogy.
We know about it here in Las Vegas.
Yep.
Because that's what we've got now is our memories.
Yes.
That's never going to happen again.
Yep.
I'm not saying Florida State's going to fall that far, but I think it might be quite a while before Florida State's in that mix as one of the superpowers in college football. I think those days are done.
But listen, they'll be lucky just to win the recruiting battle here in Florida, which has become extremely competitive.
They're not winning. They're not coming close.
Nope.
Florida's going to beat them.
Yep.
The whole SEC is going to beat them. I mean, Alabama's going to beat them.
Yep.
Georgia's going to beat them.
Yep.
Miami's going to beat them.
Clemson's got a pipeline in here right now, and it's there.
Even in state.
Yeah.
I accept Florida might be beating them now.
That's a good point. Very good point.
That's where the problem is.
Yep.
When Florida, it's one thing if Florida State's, maybe a step below some of those big names we've just mentioned, but when they're getting out recruited by UCF, that's not an insult. That's not an insult to UCF, but UCF's not in a Power 5 conference.
No.
And Florida State should never be getting out recruited by a non-Power 5 team.
Yep.
Ever.
Nope. It's an interesting year across the board, certainly for the big three in Florida, the Miami, the Florida State, and the UFs. But we'll see how it all pans out. And in the meantime, guys, if I was you, we're talking numbers here. 12-1 the last 4 days across the board for Mr. Cokin here. 6-0 college and NFL 5% plays this season. 9-0 college football 5% since October of 2019 at WagerTalk. And right now, all his 5% plays, 78.3% the last 14 months. What does that all mean? It means get over to WagerTalk.com and Mr. Cokin's page. You heard him here. You probably ain't going to have, you put them up, Dave. And the best part about getting an all-access package is that you never have to search. You get as soon as the play goes up, you get notified, and you, in all likelihood, are going to get notified before everyone else.
Yeah, because a lot of times I won't put the games up for individual sale until the all access guys have gotten a chance to sink their teeth into them. So a lot of times what happens is the numbers move. But that's the advantage of having a subscription rather than being a single game player.
That's correct.
Next week I'm going to talk to the. I guess Johnny Detroit's probably the guy I need to talk to. Let's maybe get a coupon code for next week's show.
Yep.
An early edge coupon, because college basketball's starting in a couple weeks. So maybe we can tie something in. And I'm not going to have a lot of volume in college basketball.
Right.
But there is something happening, and I'm not going to talk exactly about what it is, but there's something happening with the scheduling that I think could be very favorable for bettors early on. Find out, because I'm not going to just dive in and play 1,000 games.
Right.
But if I'm right, we're going to have some spots early in the season that'll be worth playing because of the way they're going to work the schedule on these games. Some people might know what I'm talking about already. They might have figured it out. But we'll talk more about that down the road. We're going to, by the way, should mention real quickly, I don't know how we're going to do it yet. It won't be an everyday thing, but probably a couple times a week, we're going to do an early edge college basketball.
Yep.
Where we'll get the early information. That'll be on days with big schedules.
Yes.
There's no point doing it on like Friday or something like that. But we'll do some early edge college basketball shows to maybe get you and some indications on what the market figures to be doing with games, because that allows you, doesn't matter. It's not like we're picking the games, but if you can get information as to where the line is likely to go and you like a game, it gives you your best opportunity to get the optimum number.
Yep.
If you get, CLV still means something. It hasn't meant much in the NFL this year.
No.
But it still means a lot in college football. And the 5% play on Saturday was a good example of it. Because everybody who got my Appalachian State game early got it at 17.5 for 18, and they won the game.
Yep.
The game closed 21.5.
Ah. Case in point. Yep.
They won by 21. So this show while I'm not giving picks on this show, the line information we're giving out should help you be able to get an idea of where the numbers are going to go, and that'll allow you to make better wagers on your own plays.
Yep.
If you make better wagers on your own plays, you're going to win money. Okay.
Knowledge is power, guys. That's what we're trying to provide you here early enough in the week so you can go ahead, make sure that you're heading in the right direction, making smart sports investing decisions. Another smart one would be get over to WagerTalk.com. Make sure you're following Dave on Twitter at Dave Cokin. I hope you guys remember that one, at Dave Cokin. But we appreciate your time. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. And, of course, come back and join us again next week as we look to give you the early.
And if you're don't let your cat lay on the mouse. So,
Damn
because then
cat.
you won't be able to click on the show, and we don't want to lose viewers because of cats.
Amen to that. He is Dave Cokin. I'm Joe Raineri. Best of luck with your plays this week, guys. We'll talk to you again next week.